Hello and welcome to Hooray. Today we are going to discuss the speaking component part 1 in the IELTS test. Let's look at some strategies and the basic overview of part 1 in the speaking test. Here is the description. Total speaking time is between 11 and 14 minutes. There are 3 parts in the speaking test, and every test is recorded. Part 1 consists of a general or self-introduction task which lasts for 4 to 5 minutes. The part 2 is the cue card topic where you can prepare for 1 minute and speak for 2 minutes without interruption. And part 3 is the discussion on the cue card topic which lasts for 4 to 5 minutes. Let's look at the speaking criteria or the band descriptors. 1. Fluency and coherence. 2. Lexical resource. 3. Grammatical range and accuracy. And 4. Pronunciation. Let's take a look at the description of part 1. As we saw, it lasts for 4 to 5 minutes. The requirements are: you need to answer around 3 to 4 questions. Ask doubts or meaning if you require. The examiner will explain but not rephrase the question. Some suggestions are to give a complete response. Don't just say yes or no. Say at least 2 sentences for each question and focus on your language skills. Now let's look at 3 main strategies which would help you in part 1 in the speaking test. First is to expand your answer. You have to show your language ability to get a higher score. Suppose they ask you a question like this: do you have many friends? Why or why not? The bad response would just to say one word, yes. A better response would be, I do have many friends who I like to hang out with occasionally. But the best response would be like this: I have more than 10 friends and I'm not sure if I should say this is many. However, I had more than 30 friends in my school days. With the passage of time, the number plummeted. If I count my Facebook friends as real friends, the number would go high. Second main strategy is exhibit good language skills. Use descriptive words and weave them into the sentence. For example, if the question is, what types of cuisines do you prefer? A bad response would be home food or Italian food. If you see that this is not a complete sentence here, there's no subject or verb. So a better response would be, I prefer home-cooked food and Italian food. Here you do have the subject I and a verb prefer. But still, the best response could go like this: I prefer homemade food that is simple yet scrumptious and tickles the taste buds. Apart from that, I do enjoy Italian food like pasta, risottos, and pizzas. I love food with a creamy consistency, cheesy base, and is well seasoned with herbs. So whenever I want to eat out, I go to my favorite Indian restaurant and indulge in some good food. A good combination of descriptive words and phrases can get you a higher score. The third main strategy is buy time to think. Sometimes, if you're not sure about what to respond immediately, or if you do not get an idea immediately to answer, you can buy time to think and you can use certain phrases or sentences in order to do this. For example, asking to repeat the question. One way to do this is to rephrase the question. So you change the words of the question and ask, So, do you want to know about my favorite food? Or you can rephrase using language like this: I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Or you could say, could you please repeat the question? Or you could also use some memorized phrases to start your answer. You could begin this way: well, that's a really interesting question. Or you could say, oh, I'm not too sure about that. Yet another way is to say, let me think for a minute. You could also say, oh, yes, it is. And yet another way is to say, with regards to your question, I guess I would have to say that. So, by using all these phrases, you could buy more time to think. Now, let's look at how to structure your answer. The strategy to structure your answer. You can divide your answer into 2 or 3 parts. The first point is to use an opening phrase and then follow it with a sentence. You could begin saying, I'd like to begin by saying, and then say what you want to say. Or you could start off like this: the first thing I'd like to mention is, and mention your first point. You could also say, the first main thing you need to know is, and then you say your first main point. The second strategy is to use adding points. You can add points to what you have already begun saying. So, in order to add points, you can use transitional phrases like, in addition to that, and then add your next idea. You could also say, another thing to note is, and continue with your next idea. Or you could say, not only that, but dash is also immensely dash. So you can say, but dash could be a noun there, is also immensely, and you could use an adjective word after that. The point 3 is to give a closing sentence. Here, you can use phrases like this: finally, I'd also like to mention, and then you add your last point. Or you could say, perhaps I should finally add, and give your last idea. You could also say, I guess I could also say that it's sort of, and then you give your closing point. These are some of the ways you can structure your answer. Let's look at a sample question and answer. In general, do you prefer eating out or eating at home? Why? You could give an answer like this to get a good band score. Well, I mostly prefer eating at home. Homemade food has better nutritional value and offers a wide range of choices. In addition to that, it is more hygienic and less expensive. However, I like to eat at a restaurant occasionally, as dining out in a restaurant gives me a chance to socialize and catch up with my friends. Here are some questions which you can use to practice by yourselves. For example, what are you studying? What is your major in college? Can you describe one of your typical working days? What is your daily routine on a working day? What kind of street do you live on? What do you like about your town?